This week, some of our favourite memories of New York City.
From historical landmarks.
I think of what we needed to do to create a real movement, to create real equality.
To hidden treasures.
This view is incredible.
Where creativity is everywhere.
Somebody has to preserve a record of what we have. It's worth it.
And everyone's got a story to tell.
I'm a travel journalist, and a little while ago I was in Japan.
Hello and welcome to the programme, coming to you this week once again from our home here in London. That means, unfortunately, we're still grounded, but it does give us a great opportunity to rummage through the archives and dig up some forgotten gems.
This week, memories from one of the most exciting destinations in the world, New York City. And we're kicking off with an emotional visit back in 2019. When the BBC's first ever LGBT correspondent, Ben Hunt, went for the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riots.
In the US, the 1960s was an era of activism and protests.
It was the end of the counterculture 1960s. Women were fighting for their rights. Blacks were fighting for their rights. Latinos were fighting for their rights. And we just said, what about us? Why not us? Why not me?
On June 28, 1969, the riots at the Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street would mark the birth of the modern gay rights movement.
So this is where it's at.
Yes.
This is where it all happened.
Mark Segal was 18 at the time and had arrived in the city just a few weeks earlier.
Seeing all the rainbow flags on it.
What is it like to be back here?
It's sort of emotional. I think of the people who helped educate me or what we needed to do to create a real movement, to create real equality.
What was it like that night?
Just like any other normal night. We were inside, we were having a great time. I was standing in the back near the dance floor. The lights flickered on. Then they came on full force. I looked over at someone and said, what's happening? And they said, oh, very casually, it's a raid. I'd never been in a raid before, so I was a little nervous. Police barged in. I just started pushing people around. And anybody looked like they were successful, they went up to them and said, take out your wallet. And they took the money. It was, out graft right in front of everybody's face, and they didn't care, because that's the way you got to treat gay men and lesbian women in those days. You treated them like trash. So they carted me, I went out, and I stood about right over there. Out here, somewhere between 50 and 100. Police tried to disperse us. We wouldn't disperse. It was the first time that gay people said to police, no, this is our neighborhood. You're not going to tell us to get off our street. We picked up stones, we picked up cans, and threw them. And that was the first night.
The protests raged for several nights and led to the first Pride March in 1970. The Stonewall Inn has since become a historic landmark and attracts visitors from across the globe keen to learn about the struggles.
It was illegal to serve gay people alcohol, and it was also...
It wasn't easy. Many of us went to jail. Many of us were beat. It's been a long 50 years, but guess what? We're further along than I would have ever expected.
I can't really imagine what it must have been like to be there on that day when the Stonewall Riots were kicking off. But I loved what he said about the fact that for them, it was just a protest. They were just sticking up for their rights and doing what they felt they needed to do. And it's only now that we realize what a big impact they all made.
Many cultural institutions have embraced the opportunity to delve deeper into LGBT history and culture, highlighting the bravery of some of the less well-known figures.
Some of the most important people are transgender people, and particularly Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson. A lot of people think of them just in terms of their participation in Stonewall, but they were really major activists at that time and were on the front lines of all of the demonstrations.
So the whole community came together then?
Yeah, both this new generation of activists and also the older generation of activists, and lesbian activists, gay activists, and transgender activists.
Oh yes, lesbians unite, yeah.
And so here you see thousands of people who are willing to come out of the closet and be part of this political movement.
It's hoped that exhibitions like this will help keep the memory of what happened alive and inspire future generations.
I'm 27. This is the first time I'm seeing many of these pieces. Why should people my age, my generation, care about this exhibition?
In this internet age of people liking things on Facebook and a kind of internet activism, I think it's very hard for people to realize the real oppression that people faced in the 1960s and 70s, and also that they were able to make a difference. And the way they changed our society was by getting personally involved in politics, in joining organizations, creating newsletters, and putting their bodies on the line in demonstrations. I think we need to appreciate today and also be inspired by today to know that we can make a difference again.
And back at Stonewall, a chance encounter with a group of students provides an emotional reminder of just how far the movement has come.
I'm proud of what happened there. It makes me proud to see you all here today because it says the work that we did is filtering through. I think any of us who were there that night would have never expected would have come as far as we have. I'm shocked. I never thought I'd be able to be married. I never thought I'd be able to express that publicly. Me saying that I have a husband. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Something standing out here I never thought I could do. Wow. Yeah. So, thank you guys. Yeah.
An emotional journey for Ben Hunt back in 2019. Now, pop culture has made New York so familiar to us all that some visitors arrive feeling like they already know the place inside out.
So in 2017, we sent Joe Worley there with a brief to uncover some hidden treats that might still offer a few surprises. All with the help of travel blogger Jessie Fester.
Now I'm off to try a new tour that goes behind the scenes at one of New York's most iconic hotels. Historian Joe takes me down to an abandoned tunnel that was used until the late 60s as a private route for VIPs.
We're underneath the intersection of 8th Avenue and 34th Street right now. We're headed south towards Penn Station.
What famous people came here?
John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy were here. Of course, there's many legends about John F. Kennedy. And this would take you out to the platform to Penn Station.
But the most exciting bit is the roof. This view is incredible.
Well, besides the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building, and if you look down there, you can see the Statue of Liberty. Let's go see the roof sign.
You can see it all over the city, can't you?
I can see it actually from the town where I live in New Jersey.
The letters are enormous, aren't they, when you get up close?
The letters are about 20 feet tall, and they're illuminated by LEDs.
How many people have touched the sign, Joe?
You're in a group of less than a dozen people, I'm sure.
Thank you for bringing me up here.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Jessie said to come here to see an orchestra, but the address just seems to be a normal block of flats.
Who is it?
Hi, it's Joe. Hello.
Hi.
Are you Sam?
I am.
What's happening here?
So this is a group muse, which is a classical music house party.
Okay.
So come with me.
We arrive in the middle of a recital. This is really special.
Group Muse is a classical music house party that connects classical musicians in the area to people who have living rooms or clearly rooftops in the area. So we have, group muses every night, pretty much every night in New York, and anyone can host and anyone can attend.
The idea is that people make a $10 donation to the musicians, which makes this a much cheaper night out than an evening at the orchestra. To end my hectic day in New York, Jesse's fixed me up with a bed for the night.
Hi, Joe.
Hi! Are you the guy that sorted me somewhere to stay?
Absolutely, follow me.
Okay. It's a cab.
Oh, it's a luxury liner taxi cab. Wait till you see the inside, you're gonna love it.
That is lovely.
Here's some complimentary water for you, and now here's your official taxi hat.
How much does it cost to stay here?
$39 a night, that's it. Monday through Friday, $39, and then on weekends, just $49.
And so you were allowed to be parked here? This is...
Yeah, nothing I'm doing is illegal. The only thing I have to do is make sure I follow the parking regulations. And I always pick a place that has a beautiful view of the skyline.
Right then, better get in. It's actually quite comfortable, but very strange.
Well, good night.
And believe me, on BBC budgets, the back of a cab is about as luxurious as it gets. Still to come on the show.
How one man has devoted his artistic life to the New York subway.
I've done 110 stations so far, and I have many more to go.
And the contest that shines a spotlight on storytelling.
I can't ever be a sumo wrestler. I can't really dance so well, but you know, I probably could tell a story.
So don't go away. Welcome back to our look at some of our favourite New York memories from before pandemics, lockdowns and social distancing were even a thing. Up next, we're heading underground to meet an amazing artist who's dedicated his life to sketching the New York subway. He started back in 1978, and 40 years later, when we went to visit, he was still going strong.
When I began my study, a voice inside my head said, you know, why don't you see how conscious people are of the subway art after all? I'd say, are you aware of the art in the subway? Well, half of them said, what art? Nothing, no idea at all. I got some pens here, red, green, and blue. Here we go. My study of the subway really began years ago when I was 8 years old. My father told me that down in the subway station in New York, there were pictures on the walls. I thought that was very curious. But what got me going deeper, besides the fact that I realized some stations were losing their decor, so they had to be recorded, and realizing this, I got concerned and thought, well, somebody has to preserve a record of what we have now. Became sort of a cause for me to record the embellishments of the stations. So rather snowballed into a rather long project, which is now 40 years in the making and not done yet. Well, actually, the earliest stations were built 1900, 1904, and at that time was a great movement called the City Beautiful movement, when the mayor and his council decided that they wanted to establish New York as noble and attractive a city as the old European capitals are, which Americans and New Yorkers had always looked up to. And the mayor decided, well, you know what, we can do that right here in New York also. A good example of the very high design elements in the subway station we found at Borough Hall in Brooklyn, the first subway station and the first subway line into Brooklyn. It's just like one of the dozen designs that Lafarge created just for this station alone. But it's worth it. So what I do when I do my project, I have to do it at night, on weekends. Often you'll find me at the library or on the subway drawing pictures of what's on the wall and taking notes on how many mosaics are there, what color are they, the general description of any station. I've been self-publishing my work ever since I began. This year, though, a lot has changed. A university has published a book of my drawings. My drawings and my notebooks, the real thing, the originals, have been on display in Grand Central Terminal. That's what it's for people.
Made us stop
Yeah.
and appreciate. Look at 137th Street. Look at that. We don't
That's
do that
terracotta.
anymore.
No, we don't. No.
We don't have time to look at it,
No.
and we don't have the money to produce it.
Since I've started this study, being, I hope, somewhat of a thorough person, I intend to finish it, which means I really have to visit all the stations in the system. I have quite a long road ahead of me. I've done 110 stations so far, and I have many more to go. Obviously, 360 more or more, God knows. Because I've started, I feel I have to finish it.
Philip has finished his work on the Lexington Avenue line. That was published in December. Now he's hard at work on the Sea Bench and West End lines from Brooklyn out to Coney Island.
Because of the pandemic, there's been some hesitation on my part to go back to the city. Concerned about my health, but it's very good though, thank goodness. But as a researcher, I have to go back. I will go back. I want to go back. I want to see how things. I've been in the city for a year. I want to see how it is and what it feels like and to be there again. I was familiar stomping grounds for me for a long time, and I kind of miss it.
And finally this week, a trip that, frankly, still gives me nightmares. I am not the most confident public speaker, so when I was entered into a public live storytelling competition back in 2016, let's just say I was less than enthusiastic.
The Moth was founded back in the late 90s. The idea came from a poet and novelist who wanted to recreate the feeling of southern sultry summer evenings in his native Georgia, when moths were attracted to the light on his porch where he and his friends would gather to tell stories. Now people from cleaners to school teachers and war veterans are getting the chance to share their own personal stories in front of audiences across New York City and beyond.
I guess that it feels authentic, also that it's an art form that anybody can do. I can't ever be a sumo wrestler, I can't really dance so well, but I probably can tell a story. That is human communication, so it's very accessible to all kinds of people. I can't hold a tune, but I could tell a story.
Tonight's Moth event is being held at Flushing Town Hall, an historic building located in Queens, to an almost sold-out crowd.
The show started in 2001. Little show in New York City, Lower East Side. Few people. I was begging my mother to come. Somebody please come into the audience and tell some stories. Then by word of mouth it grew. Then New York City got 2 slams a month. Then we moved into 3, then to 4. Then we're like, maybe we can try Los Angeles. And now we are in 26 cities all over the world, actually. So we're not only in cities all over America, but also we're in London. We're in Dublin, we're in Sydney and Melbourne, Australia.
Our first storytelling this evening will be Liv Lansdale. Come on!
Anyone who wants to tell a story has to come prepared. The idea is that stories have to be told and not read, meaning no scripts or notepaper to hand.
Somehow, that dog ended up telling me everything that I now know about love.
Each event features 10 volunteer storytellers who are picked at random.
And every other Saturday, my sister, who was older, a friend, and I would go to the movie.
They can talk up to 5 minutes each and are then given a score by a team of judges. The winner goes on to perform at the Moth Grand Slam, so no pressure then.
She forgot that she's got to write down the scores.
This is quite nerve-wracking, and the prospect of me having to be up on that stage sometime soon is kind of freaking me out.
9.2, very nice, we applaud.
Strictly between you and me, I'm secretly keeping my fingers crossed that I won't be chosen. So you can imagine my horror when this happened.
I keep it going for Chrissy, come on stage up, come on, Flushing! Here she comes, keep it going, feels good. Come on, just make a big noise, bring her up here, she comes. Right now, there she is, come on, come on!
And although I do perform for a camera for my day job, up here I feel exposed and generally out of my comfort zone, as you can probably tell.
Get real close to the mic.
Oh, hi. I'm a travel journalist, and a little while ago I was in Japan, and I was there to interview a very famous chef, and he's sort of bringing out with great sort of pomp and ceremony this dish that he's created for me, and it's coming towards me, and it has kind of a crab leg sticking out the top, and of all the things that I just can't eat, and there are many, many things that I can't eat, just seafood is right up there at the top. There's almost nothing from the sea that I will happily put in my mouth. And so I asked my translator, I was like, and what is this? And she kind of looked at me and she said, she asked the chef, and she said, oh, it's fugu. You know, fugu, it's like the Japanese puffer fish, right? You know, the one that if they just prepare it very, very slightly wrongly, you die because it's full of neurotoxins. And I was like, ah! And so I went to put it in my mouth, and I kind of bit down on it, and it sort of it didn't yield in the way that I thought. It popped in my mouth like a cyst, you know, like.
Despite my nerves and to my total surprise, I came joint runner-up at tonight's contest. But the hands-down winner was Juliette Holmes, a retired grandmother whose endearing story about her early childhood really won over the crowds.
How we turned the movie show out on a Saturday afternoon in Savannah, Georgia in 1950. Thank you.
So if you're coming to New York and fancy a change from Broadway, then the Moth could make a good night out. And who knows, you could even end up on stage yourself.
Now he's apologizing to me.
Right, that's all we have time for this week. Coming up next time.
The first instalment of Rajan's epic Indian journey from 2017. When he crossed the entire subcontinent.
These are areas really for the adventurous traveller. This isn't India on tap.
From Gujarat in the west.
Oh, look at that, Mel.
To Assam in the east.
Oh, it's very difficult.
Along one of the longest railway lines in the country.
It's still the lifeblood of the country today.
If you'd like to see more of our recent adventures, you can find us on the BBC iPlayer. We're also on social media. You just search BBC Travel Show. We're on most of the major platforms. Until next time, do keep planning those trips wherever you may be heading, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.